Welcome. I'm so glad you're all here. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here enjoying the day. I'm going to give you my full attention. So I'm going to ask you for your full attention. So turn your things off, put them on silent, or at the very least, try not to look at it too much. Okay? All right. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to take out a piece of paper just to take some notes, jot things down as you're listening, if you choose to. Also, these doors happen to be locked, so if you see somebody trying to get in, will you please let them in? Yeah, please. Thank you. All right. So you're all here for test-taking tips and anxiety reduction strategies. But what I want to talk to you about is motivation. I want to know why you decided to start education. I want to know what keeps you here. I want to know what it is that made you decide that it was worth it to do something significantly more difficult than just a job or two. Something compelled you. Maybe it's, I don't want to work this crappy job anymore. Maybe it's, I don't want to work two crappy jobs anymore. Maybe it's your motivation staring at you when you get home. Your kids. Maybe it's because you knew that you had more to give. Maybe it's the expectations of your family. But whatever it is, I want you to write it down. So figure it out and write it down. Or just think about it. I'm going to give you just a few short minutes, 30 seconds, to do that. So now I'm going to ask, I'd like to challenge you to put this up somewhere. Somewhere where you look often. Somewhere that's your go-to place when you're feeling particularly stressed out. Or where you finally start to check those feelings of, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is worth it. Some people, it's a fridge. For others, it's their car. But what I want for you to do is I want you to take what you've written. I want you to transfer it in some way, shape, or form. If that's typing, if that's your thing, transfer it into script or make it artful. But whatever you do something with it. So transfer it one more time onto something else. And then put it in that space that helps keep you mindful. Mine's my fridge, in case you were wondering. The reason why I've asked you to do this is because all of you have decided to do something significantly more difficult than just a job. You've decided in some cases to do a job and school. But whatever you've decided to do, or whatever the reasons, you're doing something that takes more from you than the person that you used to be. So, when things get hard. Not if. When things get hard, look at your motivation. Look at what made you do this. Be intentional about why you started this so that it'll help you finish it when things get hard, because they will. Everyone has that class, right? Everyone has that class that makes them go, God, I hate this. I hate that teacher. I hate that. I hate what they expect of me. I can't satisfy what they're looking for. What are they looking for? Everybody has that teacher. You run into that if you haven't already. Some of you have. Some of you have run into that one that makes you question everything. Is this worth it? Am I really getting anything out of this? So, what motivates you needs to be something that you not only identify with here, but something that you can relate to here as well. So you might have the heart for nursing, but you need to also know that you can do it here. So what I'm asking you to do is to take some time after this session to remember what made you choose difficult. Because this is hard. School is hard. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it, right? But everyone isn't. Why? It's weird, isn't it? If it were, it's supposed to do what? What's your motivation? It's supposed to get you better income. It's supposed to increase your earning potential over your lifetime. It's supposed to enrich you in different ways, right? But everyone doesn't want that. That's strange, isn't it? Don't you think everyone would want that? Well, everyone hasn't done what you've already decided. Everyone hasn't consulted themselves and figured out what drives them, what makes them want to get up in the morning, or what makes them and compels them to do a good job in school or in whatever they're doing. But you have. But in order to finish this, you're going to also need to put in some effort. Not the kind of effort that requires a lot of work externally. You don't have to do a lot. But what you do have to do is this kind of effort. The kind of effort where you sit quietly and you think about why you decided to start doing it. And what made you believe you were even capable of finishing. All right, I'm going to leave motivation, but I hope you don't. My goal in asking you to do this exercise is to follow through on it, but only you have control over that. So my challenge in leaving motivation is to ask you to have integrity, to do what I've asked you to do. And that's not because I think it's going to benefit you. It's because you already know that it's going to benefit you. So take the time later to rewrite your motivation, or expand on it, or simplify it, whatever your flavor is. But take the time later to do it and put it in that place that you look most often while you're stressed and strained. All right, let's leave motivation. Let's now turn instead and talk about tests. Who in here loves taking tests? All right, so there are... All right. That's approximately 4% of you enjoy taking tests. Why is that? What do tests do to us? What do they make you feel? What do tests make you feel? Anyone?
Sometimes stupid.
Okay. What do tests make you feel? Come on.
Stressed.
Stressed. What do anxious?
Pressured.
Pressured? What do tests make you feel? Come on. Impending doom.
Like a failure.
Yes. Yeah, like a failure. Awesome. It calls into question everything you think you know about yourself. In short, it's uncomfortable. What do you learn most from? The answers you got right or the ones you got wrong?
Wrong.
Yeah, weird, huh? So why are we so uncomfortable with testing? Let me describe it in a psychological fashion, and then I'm going to describe it in a different way. So psychologically, what's going on when you take a test is our brains perceive each question as pain. Each question is pain. It explains why you're hurried when you take your test, why you'll answer questions inappropriately when you knew the answers all along. But it's our brain's perception of pain and wanting to get us away from pain that causes some of the biggest testing errors. All right, so now if you think about testing as pain, you can sort of rationalize or at least reason through why you might want to get it over with or why you just don't want to go in the first place. Right? So what do? I'm going to give you some tips. But I'm going to wait until a little bit later to do that. What I want to switch into is instead the idea that discomfort is good. Discomfort is part of what teaches us in the best way that we can possibly be taught. Discomfort compels. Discomfort informs. Discomfort allows us to be the best versions of ourselves if we choose to be. Discomfort can mask things that are really going on. When you're uncomfortable, what are some of the... What do you do when you're uncomfortable in a situation? Say you have a family fight. What do? What's your personal reaction if you care to share or be bold enough to share? Hide. Yep, go to the next room. Get out of the situation. Say?
Stay incredibly quiet.
Stay incredibly quiet. Yep. Avoidance, absolutely. Hiding and avoidance. What else do you do? Yell. Yep. Awesome. How else do you deal with the discomfort? Slam doors. Yep. Outward displays. Absolutely. What else?
Cry.
Cry. Yeah, absolutely. Very cathartic afterward, right? What else? If you care to share. What's that?
Shy away.
Shy away, sure. Absolutely. So we do these things in order to leave the uncomfortable situation or emote, which is one of the healthier things to do. The reason why I'm bringing this up, or why I'm encouraging you to embrace the discomfort, is because in conflict, in discomfort, you can learn a lot about yourself. Here's what I mean by that. So when you're having that argument that's so uncomfortable, you have two options. And there really are only two. You can call them two different things, but there are only two. One is to embrace, or as Brené Brown likes to say, lean in to the discomfort. I think it was her. Doesn't matter. Or you run. You hide. You keep yourself safe, evolutionarily speaking, right? Because conflict feels bad. It doesn't feel good. It feels wretched and terrifying and horrible. It's a normal physiological response to want to get away from it. So are tests. So what I'm encouraging you to do is do what you're probably not doing. I'm going to encourage you instead to tackle conflict. And here's what I mean by that. Instead of being the version of yourself that you've known, what I mean is be the best version of yourself. Challenge yourself. If you want growth, if you want progress, this is how you do it. You seek growth. And the only way to seek growth is to make mistakes and stay in the conflict. How many of you know that to be true? When have you learned the most about yourself or about another person? It's in conflict. It's in stress. It's in relationship strain. Doesn't it also become evident that the only way to progress and grow is also in those ways? So embrace the conflict. Embrace the stress. And watch yourselves grow. When you learn how to put your comfort aside, you'll learn how to grow more intentionally. Instead of things just happening to you, you're going to create the environment that you want, more or less. I'm not saying it's perfect, because everyone else has a different idea about what that should look like. But when you put in effort, when you're committed to growing, and that's what you want most, testing becomes an opportunity. Taking a test becomes a way for you to prove how much you know and that you actually want to study for it. It helps you to change how you think about things from avoidance and an emotional reaction to the best version of yourself. So what do you want? How do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? The only thing is, and I'll give you this full disclosure, this requires work and effort. Not work and effort that you can go up to someone and say, hey, let's have a conversation over coffee. It's not like that. It's work and effort that has to be done inside. It has to be done in your quiet spaces, wherever those are. If it's going for a run, if it's taking a bath, if it's driving in your car, those quiet times where you choose non-distraction, where you choose to just be alone with yourself. It takes a lot of courage to start, but it has amazing rewards. All right. Embrace conflict. That's a challenge. It's my challenge personally. I don't do this flawlessly. I make mistakes all the time. But I'm not afraid of them anymore. I don't have to be perfect. That's the beautiful, gorgeous, amazing, and terrifying thing about getting to know yourself. I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to leave conflict and embracing conflict. And now instead, we're going to talk about tests more specifically. So there's one person in this space that enjoys taking tests on a regular basis. I think that's awesome. I wish I were a little bit more like that. Testing evokes a certain physiological response, and I'm going to name it so then you have a dragon to slay, okay? Testing evokes anxiety, and what anxiety is specifically is a number of different hormones that get dumped into your system all at once. But I want to talk about one specific hormone, okay? And don't worry, this part isn't important. What they're hormones and whatnot, this is just my bread and butter. I'm a scientist. Come on in. Welcome. It's A-OK. Please. So, when you have a conflict with somebody and you walk around the corner and that person happens to be coming around that same corner, and when you meet that person coming around the same corner, you run into them face to face and all of a sudden you go inside, right? Close your eyes if you're willing. And show me on your body by touching the part of your body where you feel your stress. So, in that situation, where do you feel stress? I want you to put your hand on that part of your body. Keep going. It's okay. Everyone is doing the same thing. There's no reason to feel dumb. All right. So open your eyes. Here's what I saw. Here. 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 And here. Everyone wears their conflict or their stress differently. I wanted to point that out because when I talk about anxiety and stress, what I'm talking about is that feeling, and I wanted you to be aware of where it settles in you personally. And to recognize that everyone's different. It's something that doesn't get a lot of attention. So, since you all recognize it a little bit differently, let me tell you how you're similar. When you have a physiological stress response, and physiological just is a fancy term for saying that it's something in your body going on, something that manifests itself in your body. When you have a physiological response to stress, what happens is these little glands that live on top of your kidneys, called your suprarenal glands or your adrenal glands, dump something called cortisol into your system. That's your dragon, by the way. Cortisol. They dump cortisol. They dump a couple of other things into your system as well. But they all do the same thing. And that's to induce something called a fight or flight response or a sympathetic nervous system response. Those things aren't necessarily important. I do want you to remember fight or flight, though. What those end up doing to you is when you have a sympathetic nervous system response or a fight or flight response to something going on, whether it's a test or a bill that you can't pay, or if your mortgage is coming due and you just can't make it, or if you got a student payment that you have to make or you're dropped from your classes. So when those hormones get secreted and dumped into our system, it feels like it does for each one of you. Cortisol is actually a good thing, normally. Did you know that? Cortisol is something that helps every one of us in case we are running from a tiger. It's really good, right? That's a specific instance where cortisol does a specific job, and it does it really well. It takes the blood and shunts it to muscles. It takes it away from your organs. They don't need to digest if you're trying not to be something's dinner. So, this is actually a ridiculously good response. Usually. Except, we now have it over tests and rent payments that we can't make and various other things. Conflict in our families. So, what do? We can't get away from it, right? To a certain extent, there's a little bit of stress that's going to happen no matter what. So, what can you do in those instances where you know that you have to take this test and you really don't want to? So what you can do are a couple of things, and I'm going to go through those now. What's something you always, you never want to do, but you always feel better after? Never want to do, and something you always feel better after? Exercise. Yeah, awesome. So what exercise does for that cortisol demon, for that cortisol dragon, is it raises our blood pressure. It raises our blood pressure, and after a certain period of time of exercise, your liver functions as what it's supposed to do, which is a filter, and it helps to break down cortisol. So that's one way you can actually clear cortisol from your system. So this dragon has ways to be slain. But you have to choose to do it. How many of you feel terrible after you go work out? Oh, good. I'm glad. Makes this easier for me. How many of you feel really good after you work out? How many of you haven't worked out for a few weeks? Okay. And when I say workout, I'm not talking about going to the gym and sitting on an elliptical. I'm not talking about going for a run necessarily. It doesn't have to be like that. Heart pumping, blood pressure raising exercise. So that can be a walk. It could be something you really enjoy, and you could do it with somebody. These don't have to be arduous, terrible, no good, very bad things. They can be fun, and they can increase your happiness overall. But you have to choose to do them. Okay. What's something you never want to do, but you always feel really good after, excluding exercise? Something you never want to do, but you always feel really good after. I'm thinking more life-wise.
Cleaning up a big mess in your house.
Yeah, you do feel good after that. That's true. But the one I'm thinking of is what most of you didn't get enough of last night. Good. It's sleep. It is cortisol lowering, because what sleep does is it decreases our blood pressure. And only when you're horizontal, eyes closed, blood pressure lowered, pulse rate lowered, can your lymphatic system draining your brain actually do its job to remove metabolic wastes from your brain. How do you feel when you don't get enough sleep?
Tired.
Cruddy? Foggy? What else? Crabby? Yep. Low functioning, right? What else? Destructive? Is that what you? Distracted, excuse me. Thank you.
Less of a human.
Less of a human. It's all these brains. Coffee. Right? All right. So that's what and how cortisol gets dealt with while you're sleeping. So that maybe didn't make a lot of sense, but you at least understand now that it's completely necessary in order to clear the metabolic wastes from your brain. If you don't clear those wastes from your brain, you feel all of these not so fantastic things the next day, right? Do you know that's the reason why sleep is used as torture? Think about that. Self-torture. I know you didn't mean to be unkind to yourself when you said one more episode of Netflix last night. I said, I know you didn't mean to be unkind to yourself when you said, oh, just one more episode of Netflix.
And then you're up for like 2.5 hours later.
Bingo.
That was me last night.
Thanks for being brave.
Not gonna,
Yep.
not gonna deny it.
Systematic torture. I'm going to call it that because that's, in essence, what anyone who loses sleep is doing to themselves. I know you didn't mean to be unkind to yourselves, but you're increasing your stress overall. You know why we want to not exercise? And you know why we want to watch one more episode of Netflix even though we know it's not good for us? You ever think about that? Every single one of us wants to feel like we are getting away with something. Every one of us has that little anarchist in the back of our heads that tells us, oh, you're not getting enough, blah, blah, blah. You're not getting enough, blah, blah, blah. You're not getting enough delicious French fries. You're not getting enough Netflix. You're not getting enough time to yourself. And so we take it, right? We take it at any opportunity that we possibly can, especially at the end of the day. Why? Why do we do that to ourselves? Because it's easy. Because it's the easy button. Because nobody's watching. You're not watching yourself anymore. You just gave up that control. You just gave up the good things that you could have for yourself. You just allowed yourself to have a decrease. Well, actually, let me tell you this in a different way. For every hour worth of lost sleep, one study says, actually there's a few studies that suggest the same thing, but this study specifically says for every hour lost of sleep, you have a 20% reduction in your immune system the next day. Now, imagine why everyone starts to get sick about 2 weeks into a new semester. Think about that. Makes sense, doesn't it? It's all of our little anarchists. I say that term loosely, by the way. So you're all highly intelligent individuals, right? You know what's good for you. Do you? Do you know what's good for you? So maybe, instead, now that you know that you already had all the answers to reducing your stress levels, maybe instead I should talk about integrity. What is integrity? Anyone have a definition? It's okay. Integrity is doing what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, every time. And most people think about integrity as an extrinsic quality, or a quality that exists when you're held accountable to someone else, right? I would like to think myself to have a great amount of integrity in relationship to you, because I don't want to let you down. But when I let myself down, that's okay? Why is that? Why is it all of a sudden okay to let yourself down? Or to not do what's going to keep you happy, healthy, and reduce anxiety? That doesn't make any sense. And even though you know it's not good for you, you continue to do it. I do it too. It's a struggle. The struggle's real. So, what I'm going to ask you to do on that same sheet of paper that you wrote down your motivation is I'm going to ask you to write down some word or phrase that snaps you into some sort of action. So when you go, oh, just one more episode, or when you go, I don't really need to work out today. It doesn't look very nice out. I don't really feel it today. I want you to say that word to yourself. Whatever it is. Make it a common word, though. That way, when other people say it, they remind you to have integrity to not just other people, but also to yourself. How many times do you have to beat yourself up? How many times do you have to allow yourself to have a cloudy brain the next day? How many times do you have to put some cruddy food in your body when you know you could have made better choices? How many times do you have to do that before it becomes self-abuse? I'm suggesting a change. Because if you want to deal with stress and anxiety better and tests, then you have to make some changes with what you're already doing, because it's not working. Some of you feel like you're holding on by a thread, and it's because you have these habits. But you also have the antidote. The thing is, though, you have to choose to use it. You have to make an effort every time. And I'm not saying that you're going to be perfect. Nobody's capable of that. I stayed up too late last night because I couldn't get my brain to shut off. I'm not perfect either. Did I use some caffeine this morning? Maybe. But I'm going to do it better tomorrow or tonight. So integrity doesn't mean that you have to be all of those things every time you say you're going to do them. Integrity just means that you need to do your best. And when you don't do it, acknowledge it and move on. I didn't do the best for myself last night. I didn't make the best choices for myself last night. But I'm going to correct that tonight. That's it. That's how it works. But it takes practice. And it takes sometimes demonizing some of those activities that you would love to do or love not to do. Exercise. Your self-care is what everyone else depends on. Your wellness, happiness, health is what other people count on. Why would you short them? So why would you short yourself? Doesn't make any sense. What's your goal in life? What do you want to do? Not what do you want to be, what do you want to do? Those are two entirely different things. I'd like you to think about that. Because if your goal is to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be, you have to change. And I know that's hard. It takes practice. It takes kindness to yourself. But you can do it if you want to. Have the integrity, though, to do what you need to do, or what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, every time. And when you fail, try it again. Do it again. Just keep doing it. Guess what happens every time you practice something? You get better at it, right? Okay, so quick recap. Stress, cortisol. Two different ways to deal with stress that are really good at removing cortisol. It is exercise, short-term remover of cortisol, and long-term remover of cortisol, what was it again? Yes, sleep. Precious, precious sleep. A good way to remove cortisol in the moment, or to at least feel better, is to control your breathing. It's one of the only things that we actually have control of in our sympathetic nervous system. If you slow your breathing, you'll feel better. If you slow your way of talking, you'll start to feel better. Everything follows the breath. Everything. Confidence follows the breath. If you look at the most powerful person in a room, what you're going to notice is that they have the slowest breathing rate. It's because they're not stressed. They're not worrying about what to say. They're thinking. So when you feel stressed, use those tools. When you know you have an exam coming up, get exercise before it. When you know you have an exam coming up, go to bed. Get some sleep. When you know you have an exam coming up, make sure that you make self-care a priority. You're worth it. Do you know that? You're worth caring about. You're worth investing energy, time, resources, thought. You're worth it. But I can't tell you that and make you believe it. You have to decide to believe it. So I'm going to leave you with your word to get you back on track with. Okay? So when you screw up, when you make a mistake, when you lose your integrity, or when you're deciding one more episode, you go, microphone, 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 microphone. Okay, I'm going to go brush my teeth, I'm going to get ready for bed, I'm going to make good choices, and then do it. I'm going to leave you now, but I hope you all have a wonderful day. And if you ever need help or counsel, or if you just want to talk something out, I work in the Learning Center as a professional sciences and math tutor. But remember, here, this is where real change comes from. It doesn't come from changing a situation. It comes from here and how you choose and make your choices to deal with it. Thanks.